The rain hammered against the windshield as my taxi crawled through Vancouver's evening traffic. 22 years. 22 years I'd spent in the oil fields of Alberta, sending every dollar home so my son could have the life I never did. My hands, gnarled and scarred from decades of roughneck work, trembled as I clutched the address I'd memorized long ago. The house I'd bought him, my legacy, my everything. I never expected silence to be so loud. When I rang the doorbell of the Kitsilano heritage home, the one with the view of the mountains, the one that cost me 7 years of double shifts and living in a work camp trailer, a young woman answered. She wore a gray uniform, an apron. Her eyes were hollow, tired in a way that had nothing to do with age. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm looking for Michael," I said. "Michael Chen. This is his home, isn't it?" Before she could answer, a voice bellowed from inside. "Who's at the door?" She flinched. Actually flinched. Just someone asking for directions. She called back, her eyes pleading with me to leave. There was fear there, terrible fear, but I saw something else too, something that made my chest tighten. She had my late wife's eyes, the same amber flecks in the brown, the same shape. "Sarah," I whispered. Her face went white. "How do you know my name?" The door swung wide, and a man filled the frame. Mid-40s. Expensive suit. Cologne that probably cost more than my monthly camp stipend. He looked at me the way you'd look at a stray dog. "Can I help you?" His tone made it clear he had no intention of helping anyone. "I'm looking for my son, Michael Chen." The man's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind his eyes. Calculation. "Michael. Haven't seen him in years. Moved away. I think, now, if you'll excuse us, this is my granddaughter," I said, my voice steady, despite the rage building in my gut. "Sarah." I'd recognize her anywhere. Sarah's hand flew to her mouth. The man I'd learn later, his name was Derek Paulson. Michael's former best friend smiled. It was the smile of a man who holds all the cards and knows it. "I think you're confused. This is my home. I bought it fair and square 3 years ago. This young lady works for me. If you don't leave, I'll call the police." "Please," Sarah whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Please just go." I left, but not because he told me to. I left because I needed to understand what hell I'd come home to. 3 days later, I sat in a Tim Hortons on Commercial Drive, across from a lawyer named Patricia Wong. I'd found her through a legal aid clinic. She was young, hungry, and when I told her my story, her eyes lit up with the fire of someone who still believed in justice. "Let me get this straight," she said, tapping her pen against her notepad. "You worked in Alberta for 22 years. You sent money to your son Michael's account every month. You bought this house in Vancouver at $2. $3 million property, putting it in Michael's name because you trusted him. I wanted him to have security," I said. "I wanted him to build a life. I couldn't be there, but I could give him that. And you never visited. Couldn't afford to. Every dollar went to him and his family. He sent photos him, his wife Jennifer, and Sarah. Beautiful photos. He'd write about how well his business was doing, how Sarah was top of her class, how grateful they were." Patricia's jaw tightened. "When did the letters stop?" 4 years ago, he said they were traveling. Business opportunities in Asia. He'd email occasionally. I trailed off, the weight of my stupidity crushing me. I should have known something was wrong. "What made you come back now?" "I got sick. Lung damage from years in the rigs. The company doctor said I had maybe 2 years left if I didn't get proper treatment. I figured it was time to retire. Spend what time I have left with my family." I laughed bitterly. "Joke's on me." Patricia pulled out her laptop. "Give me everything. Full names, dates, bank transfers, deed information, everything." I did, and while she typed, I told her what I'd discovered in those 3 days. Michael was dead. Car accident, 3.5 years ago. He and his wife both, on the Sea to Sky Highway. Sarah was 19 then, a second-year student at UBC studying engineering. Derek Paulson had been Michael's business partner. He'd also been the executor of Michael's will, a will I never knew existed, one that supposedly left everything to Derek until Sarah turned 25, to be managed in trust. Except there was no trust. There was no management. There was only Sarah, living in the maid's quarters of her own home, working 16-hour days, cooking, cleaning, and caring for Derek's actual family, his wife, his 2 teenage sons. She wasn't paid. She wasn't allowed friends. She didn't go to school anymore. When I asked around the neighborhood, pretending to be a confused old man, looking for directions, people told me stories. The poor orphan girl Derek had so generously taken in. How kind of him to give her a roof over her head despite her inability to contribute. How sad that Michael and Jennifer had died in such debt that Derek had to buy the house just to keep Sarah from being homeless. What debt? I'd paid for that house in cash. This is fraud, Patricia said, her fingers flying across the keyboard. This is elder abuse, theft, human trafficking, mister. This is a criminal case, not just civil. Can we get her out? Not immediately. We need evidence, real evidence. If we go in with accusations, he'll lawyer up, hide everything, maybe even kick Sarah out before we can prove she has rights to the property. We need to be smart about this. Smart. I'd spent 22 years being smart, working myself to death, while strangers stole my family. What do you need me to do? Patricia looked at me, and I saw the same calculation I'd seen in Derek's eyes. But this time, it was in service of something good. Can you play a part? She asked. I thought of Sarah's hollow eyes, her flinch, the gray uniform in her own home. Tell me what you need. The next week, I became someone else. I let my beard grow wild. I wore my oldest, most stained work clothes. I walked with a heavier limp than necessary, not hard, given the pain in my knees. I found a spot on the street corner 2 blocks from the house, near the community center, and I sat there with a cardboard sign, homeless veteran. Anything helps. God bless. It wasn't entirely a lie. I was staying in a youth hostel downtown, my savings depleted from years of sending money away. I was a veteran of the oil fields, and I definitely needed help. People were kind. A few dollars here, a coffee there. One woman, probably 70, stopped every day to chat. Her name was Margaret, and she'd lived in Kitsilano for 40 years. Terrible what's happening to this neighborhood, she said on the 3rd day. Used to be families. Now it's all tech money and investment properties. Must have seen a lot of changes, I said. Oh yes, like that beautiful heritage home around the corner. Young couple, bought it. Must be 10 years ago now. Chinese fellow, Michael, and his wife. Lovely people. Had a daughter, Sarah. Sweetest girl. Used to help me with my groceries. What happened to them? Margaret's face fell. Terrible accident. Both parents gone. The poor girl was left all alone. Her father's business partner took her in. She lowered her voice. I don't like to gossip, but I never see her smile anymore. She used to be so bright. That's rough, I said, my heart breaking all over again. The man, Derek, he says she's got mental health issues. Depression from losing her parents. Says she prefers to keep to herself. Do housework because it's therapeutic. Margaret frowned. But I don't know. Something doesn't sit right. I tried to talk to her once, maybe 6 months ago, and he practically pushed me away. Said she wasn't taking visitors. I filed this away and reported back to Patricia every evening. We need more, she said. Witnesses are good, but we need documents, bank records, the deed, proof of the original purchase. How do I get that? You don't, but it takes time, and Derek's lawyers are blocking us at every turn. They're claiming privacy, saying we have no standing because you're not listed on any documents. Can Sarah request them? She'd need to know to request them, and she'd need to know she has the right. Patricia leaned back in her chair. I need to ask you something difficult. How much does Sarah know about you? The question hit me like a fist. I don't know. Michael said he told her about me. Showed her my letters. Did he? I didn't have an answer. We need to talk to her, Patricia said, directly, without Derek knowing. Can you arrange that? So I watched. Every morning, Derek and his family left the boys to private school, the wife to her Pilates class, Derek to his office downtown in a gleaming Tesla. And every morning, at exactly 9:47 a.m., Sarah took out the recycling. It was a Tuesday when I made my move. I walked up to her as she wheeled the blue bin to the curb. Up close, she looked even more like my wife. Same stubborn chin, same way of biting her lower lip when concentrating. Sarah, I said gently. She jumped, nearly dropping the bin. You need to leave. If Derek sees you. He won't. He's gone. I've been watching. Sarah, please. Just 5 minutes. I'm your grandfather. That's impossible. My grandfather is dead. He died before I was born. My world tilted. Who told you that? My father. My mother. Everyone. But there was uncertainty in her voice. Isn't it true? I pulled out my phone, a cheap prepaid thing I'd bought at a 7-Eleven, and showed her photos. Me and Michael as a baby. Me and Michael on his first day of school. Me and my wife, holding infant Michael at the hospital. Your father's name was Michael Chen, born March 15th, at Vancouver General Hospital. He had a birthmark on his left shoulder blade, shaped like a maple leaf. His favorite food was your grandmother's dumplings, the ones with pork and chives. He broke his arm falling off his bike when he was 9, and I took 3 days off work. 3 days. I couldn't afford to stay with him in the hospital. Sarah's hands shook. How do you know all this? Because I'm his father. Because I loved him. Because I spent 22 years working myself to death to give him the life I never had. My voice cracked. And because someone has been lying to you for a very long time. She looked at the house, her house, our house, and something broke in her expression. Tell me everything. I did, standing there on the curb, recycling bin between us like a buffer against the truth. I told her about the oil fields, the money transfers, the house purchase, the letters that stopped, her parents' accident. Derek, he said my parents died in debt. She whispered. He said gambling. That my father had a problem, that they'd mortgaged the house, that everything was gone. He said he was being kind, letting me stay, giving me a place because I had nothing. No family, no money, nothing. You have me. I don't even know you. But she was crying now, and the words lacked conviction. I handed her Patricia's card. This lawyer is helping me. She needs to talk to you. But Sarah, I need you to understand something. If Derek finds out you know the truth, he might do something drastic. We need time to build the case. Can you pretend? Can you keep going? Just a little longer, until we have enough to get you out. She looked at the card, then at me, then at the house. How long? Weeks, maybe a month. I don't know, but I promise you, I'm not leaving. Not again. Never again. Sarah wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, leaving a smudge of dirt across her cheek. What do you need me to do? Keep records, times, dates, what he makes you do. If he handles money, documents, anything related to the house or your parents' estate, photos if you can, but carefully, and meet with Patricia. She'll explain your legal rights. He monitors my phone. Use the library. Tell him you're researching recipes or something. Just get to her. Sarah nodded slowly, surprising us both. She reached out and touched my hand. It lasted only a second, but it was enough. My grandmother, she said. What was her name? Her name was Lily, a ghost of a smile. Mom told me once that I was named for someone special, someone Dad loved very much. I thought she meant her mother. Your middle name is Lily, isn't it? Sarah Lily Chen. The smile faded. Derek made me change it. Said Chen was bad for job applications. Too ethnic. I'm Sarah Paulson now. Legally. The rage that had been simmering for weeks exploded into white-hot fury. But I kept my voice calm. Not for long. I promise you. Not for long. That night, Patricia got her meeting. Sarah told her everything. 4 years of psychological abuse, forced labor, isolation. Derek had convinced her she was worthless, that no one would want her, that she should be grateful for his charity. He'd destroyed her phone contacts, intercepted mail, even convinced her doctor that her delusions about her family were symptoms of grief-induced psychosis. It's textbook coercive control, Patricia said when I met with her the next morning. And we have him. Sarah's testimony. Your documentation of the money transfers. The original deed showing you as the purchaser, with Michael as the intended beneficiary. I've got a forensic accountant going through Derek's business records. And guess what? He's been bleeding money for years. Bad investments. The house is probably the only asset keeping him afloat. When can we move? But there's a complication. Patricia's expression darkened. Derek's filed paperwork to have Sarah declared mentally incompetent. If it goes through, he becomes her legal guardian permanently. The hearing is in 3 weeks. Can he do that? He can try. He's got a psychiatrist lined up who'll say whatever Derek pays him to say. We need to prove Sarah is competent, that Derek has been manipulating her, and that he has no legal right to the house or authority over her. It's a lot to do in 3 weeks. Then we'd better get started. The next 2 weeks were the longest of my life. I couldn't approach the house again, too risky. Instead, I worked with Patricia, gathering evidence, tracking down witnesses. Margaret, The elderly neighbor agreed to testify. So did the grocer on 4th Avenue, who remembered Sarah from before her parents died, such a bright girl, always studying, and noticed the change after Derek took over. The UBC registrar confirmed Sarah had been a 3.9 gigapascals student before abruptly withdrawing. We found Michael's real will, the one filed with his actual lawyer, not Derek. It left everything to Sarah, with me as the backup trustee if needed. Derek wasn't mentioned at all. We found emails, hundreds of them, that Derek had intercepted, from Sarah's friends, professors, even potential employers. He'd replied to all of them as Sarah, claiming she was fine, just needed space, didn't want contact. We found the truth about the debt. Michael and Jennifer had died with $47, 0 inches, savings, and 0 debt. Derek had forged documents, created fake loan agreements, built an entire fictional financial crisis. And we found Derek's real motive. His own company was bankrupt. He'd been embezzling from his partnership with Michael for years. When Michael started asking questions, Derek had panicked. The accident was just that, an accident, but Derek had seen an opportunity and seized it. The hearing arrived on a gray November morning. The courthouse downtown smelled like old wood and anxiety. Sarah sat beside Patricia, wearing clothes we'd bought her, the first new outfit she'd had in 4 years. She looked terrified. Derek sat across the aisle with his lawyer. Expensive suit, confident smile. He nodded at the judge like they were old friends. The judge, Honorable Marianne Tremblay, 60-something with steel gray hair and no-nonsense glasses, read through the initial filings with a frown. "Paulson," she said, "you're petitioning for guardianship over Miss Chen, claiming she's unable to manage her own affairs due to mental incapacity. Is that correct?" "Your Honor, Sarah has been struggling since her parents' tragic death. I've been caring for her out of respect for my late friend Michael, but she needs more structured support, professional care. And yet," Judge Tremblay said, flipping a page, "there's a counter-petition here from Robert Chen, claiming to be Miss Chen's grandfather and alleging fraud, theft, and human trafficking." Derek's smile faltered. "Your Honor, Chen is, unfortunately, suffering from his own cognitive issues. He's confused. He wasn't part of Michael's life for years, and he's trying to insert himself now for financial gain. Is Mr. Chen present?" I stood. "Your Honor." She looked at me, really looked the way you look at a person, not a case file. "You claim you purchased the house in question, and that you've been supporting your son financially for over 2 decades. Do you have evidence of this?" Patricia handed up a binder, 3 inches thick. Bank transfers, deed of purchase, letters, emails, photos, 22 years of my life, documented in triplicate. Judge Tremblay spent 20 minutes reading. The courtroom was silent except for the sound of turning pages. Finally, she looked up. "Paulson, you claimed Mr. Chen wasn't part of his son's life. This evidence suggests otherwise. Can you explain the discrepancy?" Derek's lawyer jumped in. "Your Honor, Paulson's knowledge was based on information provided by the deceased. If Michael Chen misrepresented his relationship with his father, that's not Mr. Paulson's fault." "Convenient," the judge said dryly. "Miss Chen, you're 22 years old. Is that correct?" Sarah stood, wobbly. "Your Honor, and you're here today. You walked in, sat down, and you're following these proceedings. Do you understand what's happening? Your Honor, do you believe you need a guardian?" Sarah's voice was barely audible. "Your Honor, speak up, please." Sarah straightened, louder. "Your Honor, I don't need a guardian. I need my freedom. Can you tell me, in your own words, what your living situation has been for the past 4 years?" And Sarah told her everything. The judge's expression went from neutral to horrified to absolutely furious. When Sarah finished, Judge Tremblay removed her glasses and pinched the bridge of her nose. "Paulson, I'm denying your petition. Furthermore, I'm ordering an immediate investigation into the allegations of fraud and abuse. Miss Chen, do you have a safe place to stay?" "She can stay with me." "Your Honor," I said. "In a youth hostel." The judge raised an eyebrow. Patricia spoke up. "Your Honor, if I may, I'd like to request an emergency order returning possession of the Kitsilano property to Miss Chen as the rightful heir. Chen can stay with her there, and Mr. Paulson can make other arrangements." Derek exploded. That's my home. I paid for it. With whose money? Paulson. Judge Tremblay's voice could have frozen fire. I've read these bank records. You'll have plenty of time to explain yourself to the criminal division. Emergency order granted. Paulson. You have 72 hours to vacate the premises. Any assets you claim ownership of will be subject to a separate civil trial, but the house itself is hereby returned to Miss Chen, effective immediately. This hearing is adjourned. The gavel came down like thunder. Derek tried to approach us in the hallway, his lawyer holding him back. Sarah, you don't understand. I was protecting you. Your father would have wanted. My father, Sarah said, her voice steady for the first time since I'd met her, would have wanted me to be free. He would have wanted me to know my grandfather. He would have wanted me to live in the house that was bought with love, not stolen with lies. She took my arm, and we walked out into the rain together. 72 hours later, we stood in the foyer of the Kitsilano house. Our house. Sarah's house. The furniture was gone. Derek had taken everything he could load into a truck, but the bones remained. Hardwood floors. Crown molding. The view of the mountains. I don't remember it being this empty, Sarah said quietly. We'll fill it. I promised. With good memories this time. She wandered through the rooms, touching walls like she was meeting them for the first time. In what had been her parents' bedroom, she stopped. I used to play here, she said. When I was little, Mom would let me build blanket forts. Dad would pretend to be a dragon. She smiled, tears streaming down her face. I forgot. Derek told me so many times that they didn't really love me, that I was a burden. I started to believe it, but that wasn't true. Was it? Your parents adored you, and so do I. You don't even know me. Then we'll fix that. We've got time. She turned to me. This stranger who was my granddaughter. This young woman who'd survived hell and somehow still had hope in her eyes. Could you tell me about them? About my dad when he was young? About my grandmother? I thought about the oil fields. The 22 years of cold and exhaustion and loneliness. The letters I'd written and the photos I'd saved. The dreams I'd had of a reunion that would never come. Because my son was gone. But Sarah was here. Sarah was alive. I'd like that. I said, how about we start with the dumplings? I think I remember your grandmother's recipe. We ordered a pizza instead. Neither of us knew how to make dumplings yet, and sat on the floor of the empty living room, eating and talking. Sarah told me about her childhood, the parts she remembered clearly, the parts Derek had tried to erase. I told her about Michael, about Lily, about the life I'd lived in service of a family I'd barely known. Do you regret it? She asked. All those years away, I thought about it, honestly thought about it. I regret not being here when you needed me. I regret believing the lies in those last emails. I regret that I didn't come home sooner. I looked at her, this resilient, brilliant young woman. But I don't regret the work, because it meant you had a home to come back to. Even if it took us a while to get here. She leaned against my shoulder. Tentative. Testing. Tell me about the oil fields. So I did. And she told me about UBC. And we made plans she'd re-enroll for the winter semester. Study engineering like she'd always wanted. I'd get treatment for my lungs. Maybe last more than 2 years if I was lucky. We'd fix up the house together. Fill it with furniture and laughter, and the family dinners we'd both been denied. Derek's criminal trial would come later. The forensic accountant found over $800. 0 inches stolen funds, embezzled from Michael's business and Sarah's inheritance. He'd face fraud charges, theft, human trafficking. His own family left him before the trial even started. His wife filed for divorce. His sons refused contact. But that night, in the empty house, we didn't think about Derek. We thought about tomorrow and the day after, and all the days we'd have to build something new from the wreckage he'd left behind. Grandfather, Sarah said, the word still strange in her mouth. Thank you for not giving up on me. I pulled her closer. This gift I'd been given in the twilight of my life. Thank you for being worth coming home to. The rain continued outside, washing the city clean. And inside, in the house built with sacrifice and reclaimed with love, we began again,